Let's turn to business now with Charles Pellegrin, and we're going to talk about that emergency summit in Brussels with a potential seismic shift in Germany's position with regards to public spending.
That's right, Oliver. This is according to reporting from Bloomberg. Berlin is urging its EU partners to ease the bloc's fiscal rules in order to boost defense funds. According to several people familiar with the matter, Germany's envoy to the EU made that position in Brussels on Wednesday night. This happening as Europe is scrambling to mobilize trillions of euros in defense funds in order to counter Russia and to fill in for the US as it retreats from Europe under Donald Trump. As a reminder, the rules that Germany would like to see eased are Europe's Growth and Stability Pact, which aims to keep public finances in check by limiting member states' debt to 60% of GDP and their deficit to 3% of GDP. Berlin now calling to reform these rules to allow for bigger defense expenditures. This would go even further than the EU's four-year plan announced Tuesday that could mobilize as much as 800 billion euros in additional national defense spending, as it would have an even longer-term impact. This changes the political landscape among EU countries, as Germany had been a stalwart in promoting fiscal restraint, and it can now face opposition from countries that used to share its position, like the Netherlands.
And this shift in Germany comes after the country's next chancellor announced big changes at the domestic level.
Friedrich Merz of the conservative CDU, the party that was behind the country's famous constitutional debt brake, said these rules would no longer apply to military spending, saying that it must do whatever it takes to ensure the security of the European continent. He's also announced the creation of a 500 billion euro infrastructure fund, which would aim to overhaul and upgrade the country's transportation, energy grids, and housing over the next 10 years. While this is a massive shift for Germany, the increase in defense spending had been in motion for the country since Trump's first term. Last year, it amounted to 2.1% of GDP. In 2017, that figure stood at 1.2% of GDP.
And defense isn't the only sector the the EU is hoping to boost.
Yeah, for once, we're not talking about the US in this bulletin. The European Commission has agreed on a new action plan to support Europe's car industry. The push is part of the EU's strategic move to strengthen the bloc's competitiveness and protect its industry as rivals race ahead in the US and China. August Håkansson has the story.
Europe's car makers are in mortal danger. That was the message from the EU industry chief on Wednesday as the Commission presented a highly praised plan to rescue its car industry.
For the first time, it is an integrated plan that both protects the sector, finances it, and also provides solutions with objectives that have remained. Those of the Green Deal, with the decarbonization objectives.
Supply chain risks, high energy costs, and an over-reliance on critical supplies. The industry, which contributes 7% to the EU's GDP, has been struggling in recent years. And with the US president's tariff threats, it has pressed Brussels to act quickly. Concerns have grown in the EU, especially over the adoption of electric cars, after their market share in the Union fell for the first time last year. Brussels is now considering measures to pressure companies to buy more electric vehicles.
It is clear that the sale of electric vehicles is stagnating or even declining in some sectors. And so we want to boost the demand and thus create new markets. We're going to provide incentives, particularly for the greening of professional fleets for companies that own professional vehicles, to speed things up.
The Commission also announced increasing European content requirements for battery cells and components. And to accelerate the rollout of charging infrastructure, it will mobilize 570 million euros between 2025 and 2026. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen announced earlier this week that the EU would grant the industry extra time to meet 2025 emission reduction targets without facing fines. The EU's goal of phasing out fossil fuel-powered cars by 2035 still stands.
And let's end with a look at the stock markets this morning.
Asia bourses trading higher this Thursday following in the footsteps of Wall Street's close. Investors there reassured by Trump providing a month-long delay on tariffs for automakers who comply with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. The White House spokesperson Carolyn Leavitt saying Trump was open to discuss other exemptions. And looking at Japanese and Korean auto stocks, all of them trading higher currently, except for Toyota, as you can see, the Hyundai motor at the close up 1.5% higher.
Thank you very much for that, Charles Pellegrin.